Feel the bass drum booming in your face, son.
Hello, my name is Julius Miller. I'm from the United States and I'm 24 years old. Part 37. Let's talk about cultural shock. Do you think when in Rome, do as the Romans do is always good advice? Why or why not? Have you ever been in a situation where you felt you had to do as the Romans do? In general, I think it's better, it's always good advice to try to follow the cultural norms and the customs than to actually not follow them at all. Because I feel like if you're going to be living in an area for an extended period of time, I think it's important to, for yourself and for the people around you that you respect the culture, so that way you don't come off as rude or offensive to people. So let's see, when I think about any situations in Korea, no, I can't recall right now a time where I felt I had to do as the Romans do, because for me it's I genuinely respect the culture here, so I'm just gonna try to follow the guidelines, what young men are expected to do. Even as a foreigner, I don't really hold myself to a different standard because I'm not from here. Since I feel that's just not fair. So I want to be respectful to all people, regardless of where I'm from, if that makes sense. Question 2. Have you ever experienced culture shock? When I first got here, I think one of the biggest cultural shocks for me was just how considerate the people were here. Because I'm from the United States, right? So I guess I don't want to say this is a bad stereotype about America, but we're very individualistic, meaning we follow the beat of our own drum. We choose our own paths. We don't really let family or friends tell us what we should do. We do what we want to do because we know in our hearts that it's right. At least that's a very strong tenet most Americans believe in. So when I got here, I was just so surprised and considerate with how people are when it comes to just random acts of kindness. So case in point, the other day it was actually raining heavily outside, right? And I was waiting for the bus to go back home. This one woman actually approached me and said, "Do you need an umbrella?" And without even me answering, she just gave me her umbrella, which is kind of surprising because it's back in the United States, that would never happen, which I still to this day, I'm actually kind of shocked about, but I'm just grateful. Question 3. Have you ever experienced reverse culture shock? Actually, yeah, I kind of have. So I actually studied abroad in Korea back when I was a college student, and I studied abroad for about 5-6 months. Apparently in Korea, people don't tip here, but in the United States, tipping is mandatory. You have to tip, because if you don't, it's just very rude and considerate. So when I got back to the United States after living in Korea for about 5-6 months, I actually used to go around not tipping when I got back. And then at one point, I was with one of my friends at a restaurant, and after we finished eating, my friend laid out a tip, and I was like, "Wait, why are you doing this?" And he was like, "Bro, why are you not tipping?" And I was like, "Right, we're in the United States now. I have to do this." Question 4. When people from other countries think about your culture, what do they usually think of? Okay, I kind of already said part of this back in question 2, but when people think about my culture, I think most people think that Americans are really headstrong, we're kind of stubborn. We follow the beat of our own drum, and so we're very individualistic. Not that we're entirely selfish, but we care more about our dreams and desires first than fulfilling the dreams and desires of the people around us. Question 5. What do you like most / least about your own culture? So I think one great thing I like about being an American is that you have the ability, for the most part, to control your own destiny. As long as you have the hard work, the determination, and the sacrifice, you make the sacrifices necessary to do so, you can basically do whatever you want. in the United States. Another thing that I really like about being an American is that you can actually speak your mind. So I'm not like the biggest fan of our current president right now, and I've openly talked about my disagreements with President Trump with my friends like all the time. But apparently, like to like other friends like around the world, some of my friends like live in countries like where it's like publicly frowned upon, like speaking bad about your leaders, your elected officials. So I never really thought about that until like I actually like talked to my friends about that. So for me, like just being an American, having freedom of speech, that's something I hold. That's like very valuable to me, and that's something I'm very grateful for. Something I'm least proud about my own culture is I think at times like people in America can be like a little too selfish, a little too self-centered. Even though like we have like our own dreams and goals that we have to go for, sometimes when it comes down to it, that we're kind of shallow, a little materialistic. That's something I've definitely noticed. Like capitalism is a very, I don't want to. It's kind of tough to say this, but I think capitalism, for the most part, is kind of responsible for like some major problems in American society as we see today. And I think most people have a huge obsession with like getting rich at the sake of like screwing over another person or at the sake of like another person's expense. So that's something I'm not too proud of about my culture. Question 6. Would you ever consider marrying or dating someone from another culture? Yeah, absolutely. I've dated people from like different parts of the world already. So for me, it's like I'm not really looking at someone like where like if they're from my culture, then like yeah, I have to date them. It doesn't really make sense. That's not how love works. You like who you like, and if they're from like another part of the world, then so be it. Question 7. Would you ever consider living permanently in a country other than your home country? Why or why not? So this is actually something I've been thinking about for the past few months, actually. There's a part of me that actually would love to live in another country, like maybe move there permanently. Like right now, I think one thing that I'm at least like talking to my friends from around the world, that my friends from different countries have that like what we don't have is like universal healthcare. I'm actually kind of surprised, like at least when I first got here, right? The job I have working working on behalf of the US government in Korea, like the health insurance I get here is much, much, much better than the health insurance I get back home. And it's actually much cheaper too. So I feel like if I were to ever start a family, I would want to be able to take care of them and provide for them. But if there's some things I can't provide for, like health insurance, because it's too expensive, like back in the United States, that's like a huge like, concern I would have if I were to raise a family. So just for that reason alone, I think it would be worth it just to live in another country, just to be able to take care of my family. Question 8. What has surprised you when you met people from other countries? I think the biggest surprise for me so far has been the fact that people like always keep asking me different questions about America. Like, oh, are Americans like this? Are Americans like that? What do you think about this leader? What do you think about these policies? I think because like America is such a diverse melting pot of different people, like, it creates like unique life situations and very specific like problems like within our country. And so when people here ask me about like those problems, they want to know, at least like from my perspective, how do you feel about this? Do you think this is right? Do you think this is wrong? Which I'm always like thankful and like happy that they ask like me these questions, because like even though I feel like I may not have like all the answers, at least like in my like limited life experience, I do know a few things about what's right, what's wrong, like where America stands in the world, our global image, etc. If that makes sense. Question 9. What are the 5 most important values of your culture? Let's see, I think in the United States, again, we're a very individualistic nation. So each person has their own like specific values. So to be honest, it's kind of hard to answer this question because like, at least for me, like my values can be very different from another person's values. in the United States based off like what they strongly believe in. But if I were to say like what are America's like core values, I think liberty, justice, family, honor, and commitment. I think those are like the 5 like key values, like regardless of where you're at in your life or in your stage of life as an American, like we hold these like values like dear to us, or at least like we try to. Question 10. What in your culture are you most proud about? I think in general, like Americans, we're always like a culture that's striving for the better. Right now, things aren't necessarily that great in the United States, given, the current pandemic, given our leadership in the White House, at least like from my perspective. But most Americans know like, okay, this is wrong. We can do better. We have to do better. We deserve better, not just for ourselves, but for our future children someday. So for me, just always like talking to my friends back home and even like strangers back in the United States, when we're all in agreement, like, okay, there are a lot of like strong issues that we need to fix and that we have to fix these issues. That's something that makes me like genuinely proud to be an American, because it's like we know that we can do better and we have to. Like the fact is that the refusal to like not settle for anything less but for the best, I think that's just like a value that not just Americans hold dear, but people all around the world should hold dear as well. What if your best friend breaks out of prison and comes to your house? Would you help your friend hiding in your place or report your friend to the police? This is tough. I'm going to assume for the purposes of this question, my friend didn't commit a violent crime. If it was like a violent crime like murder or an assault, then like, yeah, I'm going to have to report him to the police. But if it was like for like a really petty crime, like, maybe he was smoking weed and he got caught by the police and he decided to, not report to the court, and the police like were looking for him. If my friend like asked me just to hide out at my place for a few days, I'd be like, yeah, sure, no problem. Because, you got to be there for your friends. At least for the most part. I've been coming to Kolkam for the past 8-9 months, and in my experience, this is the best place to come if you really want to learn Korean and make good friends while doing so. Big culture and speak better at Kolkam.